Hello and welcome back to the series Masters of the Chessboard. In this series we're going through the famous book by Richard Reti, Masters of the Chessboard, looking at each of the games in that book one at a time and Reti's analysis of those games. Now we've spent the past couple of videos looking at the Reti opening. So last video we looked at a game where Reti played the opening against Rubinstein, and before that we had a bit of a primer to the opening. Now for this one, this isn't classed as one of the games in the book, so I'm not going to class it as a game in this. I'm going to include it as part of the series on the opening itself. And Reti includes this position, it's this ending that's occurred in the game between Reti himself and Peter Romanovsky. And Reti includes this ending in the book to demonstrate why advancing the two central pawns early on may be a bit of a weakness in terms of the ending, and how having them still on d3 and still not advanced d3 and e2 in this instance is actually a benefit for white in the ending. So he says that a pawn advanced to the center on the 4th rank, so that would be the 4th rank for white or the 5th rank for black. This can be a disadvantage. So in this instance, black's c5 pawn and e5 pawns are a disadvantage. And the reason for this is it's obstructing black's bishop quite a lot. And therefore, well, it's not even just, in this instance, it's obstructing black's bishop. But in other instances, it might actually even obstruct the king. Sometimes the pawns in the center on the 4th rank can actually stop the king from getting across. Now, for this reason, he says that delaying pushing your e4, your e pawns and d pawns to the 4th rank can be quite advantageous in the ending. And is one of the benefits of some of the hyper-modern openings we see, where you don't immediately put a pawn in the center. Now, in this position, if white's e pawn was on e4 and the bishop was perhaps on c4, the only other logical place for it, Reti argues that this position would be clearly equal. White's ahead of pawn, but the position would be equal. They have no way to really break through, and it's opposite colour bishops. However, because white's pawn is on e2 and d3, white has a clear advantage. Now black's e5 pawn, and especially black's e5 pawn, looks okay here, but it's actually blocking black's bishop. It's causing black's bishop a lot of it's limiting black's bishop quite a lot. Whereas white's bishop is well placed on e4, and it's able to vacate the square e4 for either the rook or the king, or the pawn later on if it needs to. And we'll see how it does this quite nicely. So Reti's plan is to try and get this bishop to leave here, and then the rook will be able to control this file using the e4 square as like a passageway. And Reti can also bring his king to f3, push e3, bring his king to e4. And so then he could have his king on e4, his bishop on c4 or d5, likely d5, and his rook can be free to move up and down this 4th rank. Essentially, Reti's pieces will have a huge amount of activity when you compare them to black's pieces. And we'll see how Reti is able to use this to his advantage. So first of all, he plays rook to c8. You have king f8, king f3. And now the threat is e3, forcing the bishop away from the defense of this pawn. So rook c8 is played. e3 anyway, bishop to c3, and now Reti takes advantage of the bishop being here and pushes a4 while he has chance, because obviously you can't take en passant because you'll lose the bishop. So he pushes a4 whilst he has chance. We then see king to e7, bishop to d5, rook to d7, and now rook to h4, h6 defending the pawn, and now king to e4. And so we see how Reti has almost succeeded in his plan. He vacated the e4 square, he used it as almost like a little passageway for his rook, and now he's going to use it as an ideal square for his king, so his king can now be in the centre of the board, and it's also protecting his bishop. So now we just need to try and convert the bishop position. Now we see king f8 and rook h5. And he comments here that white has now activated all of his pieces in such a way that white is now dominating the position. White's bishop is far more powerful, the king is more active, and the rook is quite active. White's plan now is quite simple. He's threatening to simply push g4, h4, g4, h4, and then g5 and break through in this way. Essentially open up the h-file for his rook and potentially try and force some weaknesses on the king side with using this rook on the h-file, and maybe even create a passed pawn. Now Reti comments that black is actually fairly helpless against this threat, although black is able to find a very nice combination in the game, but ultimately, as we've discussed with combinative play, combinations don't really work as well if you haven't got your pieces very well placed. So black plays rook to d7, the start of his combination. We see g4, intending h4 and g5, but now we see g6. Essentially a little pawn sacrifice, because rook takes g5, rook takes h6, king to g5 attacking the rook, rook h7. We now see king takes g4, and this has got quite a big threat to it. So let's say you were just trying to push your passed pawn. G takes f5 is just mate. Likewise, if you take here, this is again just mate. However, here, Reti is able to find a very nice move. Bishop to e6, defending f5 and attacking the rook. Now Reti comments that 12f6 is an option, but he comments that he thinks it's a draw after king g5. Although, looking at the computer's evaluation is +7 or +8 at times. So maybe he was perhaps misevaluated that move. But he plays bishop e6, which is the best move in the position anyway, and it's the move he saw which countered black's combination. Now black has to take the bishop. If they don't, if they say play rook to e7, then something like rook takes f7 could come. And again, this doesn't quite work because you can just take with the, you can just take the pawn with check. So he's almost forced to take back. But then after f takes g6 with check, he's going to win back the rook, and this pawn's going to promote very easily. So that was after bishop e6 that black has to accept the bishop because of the potential sacrifices around this. So black did accept the sacrifice. Black took on e6. And now we see f takes g6. It's still not too late to blunder mate. If you take here, then g takes f5 is just mate still. Obviously you can't take with this pawn because you can escape here. So it's still not too late to blunder mate. But after f takes e6, white has to take on g6. So now there is no mate. And this is the whole point of the combination. White essentially sacrificed a piece But in return, white has got this pass pawn, and this pass pawn. And this one's very close, and white's rook is on the 7th file. And black's bishop is actually out of the game. Yes, you can say it's a piece down, but is white really a piece down with black's bishop being here and white having 2 pawns for the piece? It is adequate compensation. Now here we saw rook to d8. Obviously, rook takes here, pawn takes here. It's just going to promote next move. So we see rook to d8, rook to a7, and now king to g5. Now Reti comments that if black tried to activate his bishop, he would still be too late. It gives this variation: bishop e1, a5, bishop h4, a6, bishop f6, and g7, obviously defended by the rook, rook to g8, but now rook to b7 comes. And the idea is, after bishop takes g7, a7, and rook b8 is unstoppable. Rook b8 followed by a8 queen is just going to win the game. So we go back a couple of moves. After here, we have to take the sacrifice. Then rook d8, rook a7, and what we looked at was bishop e1, the bishop trying to come round to win this pawn and stop it queening as well. So black played king g5 since this maneuver didn't quite work. We have g7, king h6, a5, king h7, a6, and now rook to d6. Rook d6 is basically white just wants to play rook b7, a6, and then rook to b8 followed by queen a8. And if white can play rook b7, then this plan's unstoppable. White's going to get a pawn on a7, and then white will have both of these pawns ready to queen with the rook ready to come to b8. So black plays rook d6. Obviously now rook to b7 just loses the pawn and probably the game. Black is up a piece. White does have to be very careful that white can lose the game just by doing a move like this. So we see rook to d6, preventing rook b7. Then we see h4, bishop e1, h5, bishop h5, h6. And here black resigned, because white's just easily won. So for instance, if black tried to say, well, obviously if black can't win the pawn this way because that would queen. So if black tried, let's say, bishop to g5, then rook a8 would just quite easily win. So you can't take here because that'll be mate. So this is winning, and even this could be potentially threatened as well. If instead of bishop g5, black perhaps tried rook d8 to try and stop any pawns from queening, well then rook f7 can come, king h6, a7, rook f8, king h7, and then rook f8 could be played. Because obviously you can't take there, you can take that, and you can't take that because you'll queen. So that's why in this position black resigned. Because basically the move order, the moves rook f7. Well, let's say, let's say we just give white a move. The threat is rook f7. Because even if black takes this, rook f8 is going to come, followed by g8 queen. And this plan is unstoppable. This plan of rook f7, rook f8, g8 queen is just simply unstoppable. And so because of that, in this position, black resigned. And that all started from this position, which Reti gave as winning for white, for the simple fact that in the opening, white didn't push this e pawn or this d pawn. And therefore white had the advantage in the endgame, because white was able to use this e4 square as a square for the king and as a route for the rook to move up along the fourth rank. And so there we have it. That is, well, it's not game number. I've labeling this as game number 56.3 because it's sort of the third part of game number 56. But that's the final video which we're looking at in terms of the Reti opening. And after this, we're going to start looking at the games of Alexander Alekhine. Now, if you like this video, please do like, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.